Hi everyone, Evette Rose here, and welcome to Finding Your Spirituality. Guys, I am so excited because today I have guest speaker Sandy Newbegging here with us. Sandy, welcome.
Hey Evette, how you doing?
I'm so excited, Sandy. Thank you for being here. And guys, for those of you who don't know Sandy, he has 17 years experience of teaching how our mind impacts our body and our life. He's also the creator of 4 transformational techniques: mind detox, mind calm, body calm, and also calm cure techniques, all collectively also known as calmanology. Now, also a former monk and qualified meditation teacher. Welcome, Sandy. So happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. I've been following your work for many years, and it's exciting that we finally get to have a face-to-face.
Finally. I'm so excited. You know, something struck me here quite deeply when I was just, connecting with you. And I've always felt such a strong pull to one day just get you on the platform. And it was hard to kind of like get you, but I'm so glad we did. So what I wanted to know here from you, because there's something very amazing that you do with your work. You seem to have really beautifully blended the body, meaning like the biology of the body, because you're all into detox, purification, which is of course also about letting go. And we know that physically letting go of toxicity and perhaps, whatever it is that doesn't need to naturally be in the body. But how did something like that become so appealing for you to dive so deeply and into this? Because I mean, what you did, I mean, that's commitment. That's full passion, purpose, commitment.
Well, I think we have something in common right from the get-go, Evette, which is we must have annoyed our parents with the question why. We're why people. Why is it happening? Why? I've always been fascinated with the why. And so to end up making a complete 17, 18-year career out of helping people to understand why stuff is happening kind of makes sense actually in the if you knew me as a child. But mind detox was where it started before I moved into the meditation stuff, and I was basically invited to attend a detox retreat and help with the emotional cleanse. What that person that was running the detox retreats noticed was that when people were doing their juice fasting, colon cleansing, yoga, massage, when they were mobilizing the physical toxins, the mental and emotional toxins wanted to move as well, and they got mobilized. And they were finding people were having a lot of emotion, and they wanted someone to come along and help provide a program or some proper management of that process. So I showed up and did not have happen what I expected to happen. At that point, I hadn't really worked with health conditions, and it was the first client that I walked in to meet on that first day in Spain, where I was attending the retreat. They wanted to work on, I think it was like psoriasis, and my honest question was, what's psoriasis? That's how little I knew about that sort of stuff.
Wow.
And they said, well, I've got this kind of extra thick layer of skin in my body. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. But I had no idea what to say, no idea what to ask. I was expecting to work on confidence or self-esteem or other things, emotional things. Okay. And so I just said to them, the mind and body are connected. Shall we see if there might be a mind-body connection cause? To which they agreed. Long pause as I looked down at my blank page, up at their expectant eyes, and then thankfully some questions came through my mouth. And we discovered very quickly this unresolved event in her life. We could clearly see how the body was adapting to give her an extra thick layer of defense based on what had happened through the psoriasis. We spent the rest of the time, resolving that event. So the body knew it was safe to switch off that defense, and she left. Next person walks in. I'm like, hey, how can I help? And they're like, I'm here on this retreat because I've got IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So I go, okay, well, the mind and body are connected. Shall we see if there might be a mind-body connection cause? And so I asked similar questions. And again, we found, an event, we resolved it, she left. And it happened like 20 times in that retreat. It started being known as being sanded, which I didn't really like the name of. And so, because I was the mind guy on a detox retreat, right, Mind Detox was born. And within a few months, I was in Turkey, being part of a television series that was showing people going through the mind-body detox retreat. And people got healed, and you could see their journeys of what they came with, like with you know, Alex, the Royal Marine, came on that show, and he had excessive sweating. He had to sleep on a towel. He had to take multiple changes of clothes every time he went places. He couldn't get his promotion because sweating was a sign of unfitness. And in our first conversation, he said, anger bubbles up inside me, you know, bubbles up inside me. You know, it was, the mind and body are so symbolic, and you know this for sure, but I'm talking to everybody here. But and so we resolved the root cause of that anger bubbling up inside him, and that within hours he just kept going, I'm not sweating like I have been for years. And he had operations that just moved it from his hands to his back, you know. You know, but I've been in touch with him, you know, years later, and he's like this living normal life, you know. So that was, I didn't know, but that show was going to be sold and syndicated to 30 countries. And then suddenly I got a lot of calls going, you know, number one, can I work with you? So I lived out a suitcase. I know you know that feeling where you travel around living out a suitcase for a few years. And I also got asked, you know, where did you learn mind detox? I want to use it with my clients. And so that was where I started researching for over a year. Like, was I some sort of gifted healer, or had I just accidentally stumbled across a form of healing? And so I discovered after a while, actually, it was a method, and that it became the mind detox method. And I'm now trained practitioners in many countries, and you know. And so that mind detox is kind of growing that way. And my own journey took me through meditation as well, and spirituality.
Fantastic. I mean, congratulations. That's what a beautiful journey that just so naturally unfolded for you. And what I want to know is, why specifically did you get into this line of field? What was the attraction to health in the first place for you? Was there a personal prompt that made you feel, wow, this is something I want to explore for myself, and then you loved it so much that you wanted to share it with other people? Or was there other entry point for you? Like, what was your starting point in this?
Well, I want to be clear and upfront. Like, it was never really health I got into. Like, I haven't been the most healthy person. I like my pizza. I'm Scottish. I like my whiskey, and you know, I've had a few other vices over the years. So I don't know what's that?
I had pizza last night, so yeah.
So let me just be clear. I'm not like the health fanatic. I don't want to give that impression. If you were to ask why did I get into peace, that would be the question. Because for me, it all revolves around peace. I've found that I wanted peace. I was experiencing anxiety. I was experiencing loneliness. I was experiencing, you know, I could be lonely in a room full of people. I never felt deserving of love. I created myself as an island everywhere I went. And I basically lived with this kind of pain in my heart that I just learned and gained different vices and stuff to kind of try to ignore, you know. And what I personally discovered in my journey is that if you want to improve anything, literally, I know that's a big word, but anything, then bring more peace into the equation. Find a way. So when it comes to help people heal their bodies, well, I'm helping them get peace with their past, for example. Does that make sense? I find that if we can get peace with the past, then we create an inner climate of calm. We have more holistic harmony within the heart, mind, body, and soul and life circumstances. And we're looking for alignment in that beautiful, you know, heart, mind, body, soul, and life circumstances kind of life. Looking for alignment within that. And if we're out of alignment, we tend to be in conflict, which is a lack of peace. Yeah. So, and that's where the Calm Cure stuff came from. So it's all, for me, it's all about peace. That's why I'm so passionate about helping people with mind detox. Is why I got into meditation. The turning point was, for me, I got a lot of peace and happiness from feeling like I'm making a difference. You know, that was the big deal for me, feeling like I was doing something in my life that was meaningful. I couldn't do an office job. I tried and I just couldn't do it. You know, it almost killed me in under 6 months. So I feel I was destined to do this work. It just feels what I was born to do. It doesn't almost feel like a choice. It feels like this is what I'm here to do, you know.
So I want to touch on that topic of anxiety, and I'm thankful that you had that anxiety, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be helping people right now. So it's also a big thank you to having that, you know, temporary discomfort in your life to learn from. But what I want to hear from you is, anxiety is such a big problem that we have in society today. I mean, I'm so glad you touched on that. What did you start to do to deal with this anxiety? Like, what was your journey within that place and space of that? Because anxiety, I personally have found to be in the past, it's a hairy situation. It's a very, well, at least it can be quite complex to address anxiety, because I always see it as being multiple emotions and experiences just kind of like jumbled up into the body, and to like defragment that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge if you don't know how to start, or at least what kind of entry point would be good for addressing anxiety.
Well, first of all, it's again one of these modern terms that has been applied to so many things that aren't actually necessarily anxiety, but it's a term that's just used. And so it's such a blanket term. You always have to find out what's really going on and find out what's triggering it, if it's chronic, if it's just there when you wake up in the morning, if you're having anxious thoughts, if you're dwelling on stuff in the past or future that's making, like, you need to kind of, I personally explore the mechanics of how that person is personally doing anxiety. How is it showing up for them? What they're calling anxiety. Because sometimes anxiety is just, it can be like, you know, a trauma response in the nervous system, and the nervous system's literally in overload. It's fluctuating between freeze and flood. So it comes out of freeze and it hits the flood and it back into freeze, and so it can be that kind of autonomic nervous system dance, or it can be just purely the person never being taught how to have a healthy relationship with their emotions, and they are very accustomed to suppressing their energy. That energy is powerful and it's trying to rise up, and they're trying to have a fight with their own inner power. And so sometimes anxiety can actually be someone suppressing their inner power because they were never told how to have a healthy relationship with that power. And so for me, it was very much both. Number one, I was constantly suppressing my power. I had been raised by very beautiful, caring, loving parents that had never been taught how to have a healthy relationship with their emotions. So when I expressed emotions, I was shamed and told to calm down, quiet them down, don't make a scene, you know, all that. So I made them uncomfortable because they were uncomfortable with their emotions, because their parents were probably uncomfortable with their emotions, and you can see it being passed down the generations. So a large part of healing anxiety for me was to heal my relationship with the energy occurring within my body in general.
Right.
I would turn to it and say, hello, emotion. Thanks for passing through. You're welcome to hang out as long as you want. It's a very simple exercise. I call it hello, emotions. But hello, emotions makes me more the observer. Instead of being so caught up being the emotion, I get to observe it. Thanks for passing through reminds me that this emotion is temporary. As all emotions have been temporary, but the mind can convince you when you're in it that I've always felt this way and I will always feel this way, but all emotions are temporary. So hello, emotions, thanks for passing through. And the third part is the most important. You're welcome to hang out as long as you want. Because that is the opposite of resistance. That is actually befriending your feelings and saying, hey, you've got as much right to be here as my lungs, liver, and lunch. I've just got conditioning that says I shouldn't be feeling this energy, but actually you're God too, you're source too, you're life too, you're part of creation too. And so I'm not going to deny you, I'm going to welcome you, and I'm going to let you be here as long as you want. You have the right to be here. And that lack of resistance lets the energy move, and most energy that isn't interfered with comes and goes very quickly. That's why I discovered in my thousands of years of meditation, sorry, thousands of hours of meditation. There were times it felt like thousands of years, but thousands of hours of meditation, I discovered that every emotion has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you don't touch them, they have a very short lifespan. It's when I start interfering with my emotions by thinking about them, resisting them, fighting them, trying to figure out how to make them go away. All these stories like, oh, I've felt this before, and last time I felt this happened, and I probably feel it this long, and all these stories, they're interfering with the emotion, and that's what makes them last longer often.
Right.
And so, yeah, I hope that's making sense, but part of it is about healing your relationship with emotion. You know, I liken it to or have an analogy of a train, of Orient Express. And imagine that we are, you know, we're here to fulfill a certain purpose, and our emotions are there to help us. Our energy is rising up to help us fulfill the purpose for which we're here today, and ultimately why we were born. And so imagine like this train, this Orient Express, and like you could, like a movie, you could pan along the train and go into the dinner cart. And they're all having dinner, and you hear the music and the pianist and the you know, the waiters and waitresses with their cutlery, and everyone's having a nice time. It's all very lovely and peaceful and luxury. And then you come out and you go along to the front of this steam train, and there's a few people like covered in black, and they're like, someone opens this little hatch, and it's like this big furnace, and they're shoveling in the coal, and it looks very violent there, very intense. It's intense energy. It requires the intense energy to move this train, this Orient Express. Now, without this energy, it doesn't get to fulfill the purpose for which it was built and born. It can be a nice restaurant, but it won't go anywhere. It won't be the Orient Express moving along through the Austrian Alps or whatever. So that's a bit like how I relate to emotions, is that they're rising up. They can be intense sometimes, but they're rising up. And if we don't interfere with them, then they often come with inspiration, ideas, creativity, the energy to move non-physical thought into manifested reality. Like we need energy to move from, do the magic that we're always doing, moving an unmanifested, non-physical thought into something tangible and real. Like we're doing magic every day, guys. That takes energy though. And often we're suppressing our energy, wondering why we're not making much money, or why we're not having the success we want, or whatever. It's because we're actually suppressing the energy that's rising up intuitively, naturally, to help us experience that, but we're calling it anxiety.
I see.
Right? So that's one element of anxiety. The other element is obviously the deeper, potentially darker stuff, where we might be traumatized. We might have lost a chance to have a real connection with our parents when we were first born. We may have had issues around our autonomy when we're trying to find our place in the world, and our parents were constantly pulling us back, not letting us explore, and we were learning that the world's a dangerous place at 2 years old, and blah, blah, blah. We wonder why we're anxious 25, 30 years later. And so there might be traumas and things like that also might be playing a role, that the nervous system is fried. So I'm not just saying all emotion is your inner power, or all anxiety, should I say, is your inner power. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying for me, I took and continue to take a two-pronged approach, which is healing my relationship with energy, and healing if there is a trauma response, the trauma root cause of the nervous system, so I can get the nervous system back to optimum balance.
Honestly, beautifully said. That was just, I mean, you took quite a complex, subject, and you just kind of like, you just broke it down with such a powerful but simple language. I love how you explained that. Thank you for that. What I also picked up while you were talking to me, you said that you've meditated for a lot of time.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, back in 2008, 2007, I had best-selling books out. I was on TV doing the Mind Detox stuff. I was traveling around. I was being told I was very successful, but I still had a lack of peace in my heart. And so despite a book about to come out and despite about a new TV show about to come out, I actually went off and meditate with monks for several months. And that's why, you know, and over the years, because I became a monk myself, and I'm a former monk now, but when I became a monk, you know, and over the years, I've meditated for thousands of hours. So I've done a lot of meditation and explored meditation as deeply, you know, as I could so far. Yeah, it became clear to me that, you know, it's not only about the fix it, change it, improve it model of self-help. If you want to really discover true peace and explore spirit, you know, find your spirituality, it's going beyond just the fix it, change it, improve it modality and mindset of self-help. And actually it's about, you get to a point in your own journey where you actually go, there must be more to myself and life than having to constantly fix, change, and improve myself, so that I can arrive at this ideal version of myself that is largely made up by my mind and imagination and born out of judgment, resistance, attachment, time, and ego. So there's a point where you want to actually learn how to find peace with your mind, peace with your emotion, peace with your body, peace with your relationships, peace with how the world is. And through that, finding peace with it, you find out how to love it too, because you can't be experiencing peace if you can't love something without experiencing peace with it, believe it or not. They both come kind of hand in hand if it's a genuine love, not a conditional mind-made love, but a true, real willingness to experience whatever is, which is my kind of definition of love, like willingness to fully experience whatever it is. So, you know, I kind of came to the conclusion that a successful life is one that is loved by the person living it. And so my personal, my own journey, my personal definition of success changed from money and possessions and positions and being best-selling author and all these kind of labels I was aspiring to. And it was more, do I love my life? Am I loving today? And that became my new gauge of success. And when that happened, then I had to start taking a different approach. And that was where my peace with philosophy was born. Like, so about 2013, 2014, I wrote a book called Mind Calm, which was about getting peace with your mind. And then a year later with Hay House, I wrote Body Calm, which is getting peace with your body and helping it heal through holistic harmony. And then Calm Cure was the final part of that trilogy, where Calm Cure is by getting peace with your world, with what's happening in your life. And basically saying that we've all been conditioned to basically allow some of our life, but pretty much resist the rest. We've been conditioned what a good life looks like. And if the life tends to align with our conditioning of what's good, right, and should be happening, we'll have a good moment. But for the rest of the day, we're usually having a fruitless fight with life, judging the hell out of it.
Oh, man, that's true. It's true. Yeah. That's life. How can we break that pattern? How can people start to like just, you know, move beyond this conditioning and this pattern, especially people who have like partners or parents or influential people just hanging over their head, just constantly, not even projecting. I call it sometimes just vomiting their opinions and values, because that's what it feels like. Sometimes when people talk to you and they tell you, you should do this or this or that, or it's not right to do X, Y, Z. And it comes with such a form of instructions rather than just sharing. It literally feels like just this negative toxicity that just gets thrown onto you. It's just like, what do we do with these people or circumstances? Like, how do we handle that?
Well, it's tricky if you're on a spiritual journey, because a lot of spiritual concepts, I'm going to emphasize concepts, not truths, but distorted concepts, basically make you out that if you're spiritual, you should be okay with everything. And you should just, you know, be free flowing and put a candle on and put some incense on, and that person's a bully, that person's shouting at you, that person's, you know, spewing toxicity over you, and you're like, it's okay, I just have to accept everything, I just have to surrender everything. The balance in spirituality is you actually discover true sovereignty and strength in oneness and unity. It's a very interesting paradox that the mind can't make sense of. But through actually waking up to oneness with source, oneness with life, oneness with creation, you can, if you're doing it not from concept, you're actually also going to discover this inner sovereignty and strength that can have you say what you need to say, make healthy decisions as to who you hang around with, you know, what, you know, and you basically start to operate from an intuitive power where you say what he's said and you do what he's done. And that might mean saying something to someone to tell them that's not cool to say that, or it might be to change who you hang out with, which I've done a few times in my life, you know. But the original question I want to answer, you said, how does someone actually do that? How do you get peace with like all that, right?
How do we just kind of like, how do we work with it? Like, what do we do with it?
Well, that's where CamCure comes in. The technique that is it's a bit more of an advanced technique, because you're learning how to have peace with the full spectrum of life possibilities. You have to find out what ends of the spectrum you're in conflict with. So let me rewind a little bit. Conflict in the context of what I'm talking about right now, that's impacting our spirituality and our peace and our health and all that sort of stuff. That conflict is made up of two opposing forces: resistance and attachment. So anytime we have a problem, in the context of what I'm talking about right now, anytime we have a problem, we're usually caught in a conflict. We're resisting something because we're attached to something else happening instead. So for example, if we have a problem with someone ignoring us when we walk into a room, let's say your partner doesn't acknowledge you when you walk into a room, but it's really triggering you. You know what I mean by triggering? It's like it's really, and you're having arguments about it and you want to be more cool about it, but you're getting triggering. That's the conditioned response, because you know you've got a conditioned conflict, which is basically resistant to being ignored, attached to being acknowledged. Okay. If you're really stressed about always being on time, but it's stealing your peace, then you're resistant to being late, you're attached to being on time. It's not complicated. But you can do that, these resistance attachment, like I've got a whole list of them in my book, you know, for that chapter. I can't remember where it is, but oh yeah. So, you know, judged or loved, wanted or unwanted. I'm attached to being supported and resistant to ever being unsupported. Accepted, rejected, right, wrong. You know, some people have to be right all the time. Now that's often stemming from a trauma, because they're scared of being rejected and stuff. But you know, if you have to be right all the time, it's really a lot of pressure. It's really tense. And so what we're looking to do with this is learn to get peace with both ends of the spectrum, recognizing that we live in a world of infinite possibilities, and anything is possible. And if you're unwilling to experience anything that occurs, actually you're going to end up in conflict with it. Okay. And I know this is a big spiritual leap for some people, because they're like, no, but I don't want that. And I totally get that. I would probably agree with you. But what you resist persists. We've heard this one before. It's a pretty common phrase, especially in spirituality. What you resist persists. And so if you want to make a change, you actually have to be willing to experience the thing you want to change. Right. And this is why I called this book The Unexpected Way to Improve Your Health, Happy Life, because it's like the opposite of what we might want to do. It's or our conditioning says, no, I need to push this away to fix this, make it go away. It's wrong, it's bad, it's worse, it shouldn't be happening. But actually, the path of the hero is to lean into that which we think we don't want, to discover what's in it for us. You know, where's to transcend the fear, to transcend the resistance, to transcend the beliefs or whatever, to transcend anything that's preventing us from fully experiencing life now. Right. Now, there's obviously, the mind can come in here and go, yeah, but are you saying if I'm in an abusive relationship, I should stay? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not saying that, just for the record. I'm not saying just be willing to be slapped in the face or whatever. I'm saying that some conditioning might be actually keeping you in that relationship. Some conflict might be actually keeping you there.
In a situation like that, it could be that part of you that doesn't want to be alone, but a part of you wants to be alone at the same time. So it's like that can be a perfect scenario that can lock you into something that is toxic.
Exactly. Exactly. So you naturally make different decisions when you clear the conflict and you return to peace. Because you're absolutely right, Evette. You're absolutely right.
I just want to backtrack to that, because you touched on something so powerful and so important, because abuse has, I mean, it's skyrocketed because of COVID. Skyrocketed. Domestic violence, abuse, because people are stuck in a house all the time. But the point is, it's not that the abuse is actually the problem. It's not that you're actually resisting the abuse. It's the circumstances that comes as secondary to the pattern that you're trying to resist at the same time. It's almost like the abuse is there because you don't have the boundaries, because if you have the boundaries, then people might project you, and then you're alone, and then you just kind of cycle and you spiral. So I can already just see how, based on that example, what you gave is, and just for guys, like, just because he touched on something so tremendously important. It's not that the abuse is the issue. It could be that it's a symptom of something much deeper, which is your fear of being alone and not having boundaries, because boundaries means rejection. So, there again, now you have another push, pull. I want, but I also don't want, Yeah.
I can only speak for myself, but I was the bullied one. Everywhere I went, every friendship, every group I ended up being involved with, I would always be the one with the big arrow above my head saying, you can bully me in this group. I'm the one you can make fun of. I'm the one you can undermine. I was the one that people bullied. And I can only speak for myself. And bullying is a form of abuse. I'm just trying to make an example. I, at some level, believed I deserved it. Like my belief system that I had at that moment in time, I believed at some level I deserved to be in that role, in that group. And when I healed shame from my past, literally one time I had to heal the shame of being me. Like, it was a very big one, and when the situation we're in is never our fault, because it's our unconscious condition that got us into most situations anyway, right? But now that we're in them, the question is, what am I going to do with that feedback from life and feedback from the universe? It's not my fault, but it is my fault if I stick around now that I know it's toxic. So what am I going to do about that? What am I going to do? And so I would personally invite the person to, find out what would cause them to, I don't like the use of the words like create, because it sounds like a lot of self-help terms really create a lot of self-violence.
It's an experience having, but how can you end this unhealthy experience?
Exactly. How can you transcend the need for this? For sure. Absolutely.
Right. You said something powerful there, Sandy. You said, you started to feel shameful. You started to feel like you deserved this abuse. Something that I've seen very often common with my clients and students as well, is that the way that people were treated becomes the barometer of what their self-worth is being measured by, which means that becomes their relationship with themselves. And that's why, it's like the self-abuse cycles, the self-punishment cycles, the self-loathing, the self-abuse, the self-criticism also starts, because that becomes that outer dynamic becomes our inner dynamic as well. And that probably, I'm just trying to rephrase what you said, and I'm assuming that's what you meant also, what had happened to you in the past as well.
Yeah, we've got a much greater problem than this thing called COVID going around. One of the biggest pandemics is proximal abandonment. Proximal abandonment. And what I mean by that is abandonment, is a bit obvious, because a parent left, either they just kind of abandoned the child and stuff. So that's a major trauma, and the child grows up feeling they're unworthy of love, they're unwantable, not good enough, there's something wrong with them, they can carry a lot of shame and guilt, and that can have a big impact with what we're talking about right now. But proximal abandonment has happened to so many people, because proximal abandonment is whereby the parents might be there, but they didn't and couldn't emotionally connect and support the child.
Emotional
so they're there, they're in the proximity, but they're still abandoned. So proximal abandonment.
I love it. I love that term. I love it.
But it's a real thing. It's as far as the kid's concerned, it's still being abandoned, because up until the age 2 or 3, they really need the emotional, physical connection. And you got the obvious thing of of a child being put in an incubator because they're born early, and like that's understandable. But then you've got the child that was born normal, and they go home and they are immediately put in the room next door, and the dad's kind of busy, and the mum's kind of hurt by the dad's busyness, and she's hurt by her mum judging her ability to be a mum, and they've got all this stuff going on that the child's still like going, what's going on here? Where's my connection, right? And so it still gets an abandonment. And due to culture and so many traumatized generations, we've got millions of people walking around with proximal abandonment.
So true.
And so that's one of the root causes of shame and root causes of unworthiness, and flip that. I deserve this poverty, or I deserve this abuse, so I deserve this bullying, or I deserve to, or whatever. You understand? So it's a big deal.
That also, and I'm just, my head's going 1,000 miles an hour as you were talking. And what I'm also hearing is that when you are abandoned at such an early age, I mean, the greatest thing that we want and need as a child is love and protection. And it's almost like this subconscious wiring of, when I want love, when I want protection, there's space, there's too much abandonment, there's emptiness, there's nothing. And it becomes, at the end of the day, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more love you want, of course, the more people you're going to attract is going to end up abandoning you, or bully you, or push you away, or not give you what you want. So even this absence is already quite an abusive programming for the subconscious mind, because that's what you become the frequency match to, compared to the need that you have, because these two, they fire together, and that means they wire together at the end of the day, in terms of what consciously or subconsciously happens in the subconscious mind. Because one thing that I learned is that even though something doesn't happen to you, what you experience in that moment and the story that you tell yourself, that becomes your memory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was born, I was a big baby. I was 10 pounds. I don't know if that's quite big, like a little mini sumo wrestler.
Baby too.
and I was quite blue, and it was 2 in the morning, and the nurse took me away to get oxygen, and they said they'd bring me back, but they forgot. There must have been a change of shift or something. I don't know what happened, but 10 in the morning, my mum goes, "Where's my baby?" And that's the first line of my mind detox book. Where's my baby? And the nurse said, "Oh, did we not bring him back yet?" And so I was basically born, taken from my mother at the exact moment I need to be on her chest, literally, and I was put in a nursery for several hours. And that was long enough for me to form the belief that I'm unwanted and I'm abandoned. And so fast forward a few years, anytime someone wanted me, as far as my unconscious mind was concerned, there was something wrong. Because the mind wants to prove itself right.
Right.
And so I would create this relationship after relationship, whereby I would basically, the minute I felt loved, I would change and be an idiot and an arsehole, and not intentionally, but I would just be jealous and clingy, and the person they'd fallen in love with had left the building, and eventually they would leave me. At which point I would feel vindicated, going, "I knew it. I knew you didn't love me.
Yeah.
I knew you didn't want me."
Yeah.
And so we just create these patterns over and over again. So, linking back to the summit, finding our spirituality, it's about willing to look at these things, willing to not with as little self-violence as possible. Look at these things with curiosity, with the desire to evolve, to transcend, to go beyond, to discover a new way of experiencing life. You know, we're born with such innocence and curiosity, and because of that, we've got so much magic and aliveness and consciousness. And then we start to dampen our consciousness over time because we start filling up with concepts and ideas and expectations, judgments, resistances, attachments, past and future. And we start dampening this pure consciousness, which we are, to the point where we think, well, I'm 35, I'm 45, I'm 55, and this is my experience. This is how life is going to be experienced forever. And that's not true. And a true spiritual seeker is really looking to find out how different can life be experienced. The more I purify myself, the more I clear that previous list of things.
Oh, you just hit that. You just brought it home. That's beautiful. I love what you just said there. That's so true. That is so true. I love that. Now, Sandra, tell me also, what is your definition of spirituality?
Well, you know, I was once doing a charity event a number of years ago, and I was told that I had an hour to talk to this group about spirituality. And I remembered a fridge, my mum's fridge, and she's got these quotes stuck on it. Yeah. And it said, religion's for people that don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for people that have been to hell and don't want to go back. And I think that's quite a good definition, you know, of why people start searching out spirituality. They've usually had some kind of wake-up call. They've had some kind of rock bottom moment often, or they've got to a point where it's just got a bit too uncomfortable to not start asking the bigger life questions. You know, why am I here? Who am I? These kind of questions. So if you were to boil spirituality down to one question, it's who am I? Which is kind of the static answer. The dynamic answer is why am I here? What's the point? Okay. You know, so you've got this kind of two-pronged journey of spirituality. One is finding the solid, unchanging you that exists beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond the physical body. It's eternal, it's immortal, it's unhurtable. It's never had anxiety. It's never been depressed. It's never any of that. It's the container of every human experience. And when you know that unbounded, infinite container of everything, you naturally have a healthier relationship with whatever happens. Okay, because you know peace and everything that's happening. Because who you really are is peace. It's unmoving. It's absolute, still, silent, pristine aliveness. And then from there does appear to be a reason for this existence, this creating, and there's a reason for you being here. And so from finding out who you are, the natural next step is you can't help but bump into your destiny and discover why you were born in the first place. Now, I'm not saying it's a step one, step two, because often as we are finding our destiny, we can find ourselves as well. So it's not either or, but to find your spirituality, for me, it's to start by asking these two big questions. Who am I and why am I here?
That's beautiful. And it's so, I just like how you just simplify things, because people always think and they sit there like they're expecting this complicated answer of like, you know, get the notebooks out and you kind of like just blow it out of the water. And it's like, no, life is meant to be simple. You know, that's really what I'm hearing from you. It doesn't have to be so hard.
No, truth is truth, and it's so simple. Yeah. It doesn't need truth is like, what did Einstein say or something? You know, you've got to get something to as simple as you can and make it as simple as possible. I can't remember the phrase, but it's like I find that the more I explore spirituality, the simpler it all becomes. It's the mind likes to overcomplicate things, because the mind believes something needs to change first before I can arrive to who I am. The mind will make the who am I into a destination and a things I have to do and become, so I can become this idea of my best version of myself. So that's the kind of the mind thing. I'll always push into the future, because the mind is a thinking about tool. It doesn't directly experience. We need to get back to going beyond, you know, that which is aware of the mind, that which is aware of emotion, that which is aware of everything. And we're getting closer to this who am I thing. So yeah, we need to get back to basics for sure.
It's time. Yeah, it's time for simplicity. Absolutely. I'm fully in agreement with that. I wanted to ask you also before I let you go, because I know we've had you for a while and it's been so much fun. I don't want to let you go. But last question is, what kind of spiritual rituals do you have on a daily basis? Is there like a daily routine that you practice to keep yourself, you know, balanced, to keep yourself in a nice coherent space and place?
Well, you're asking me this at a very interesting moment in my own spiritual journey, because a couple of months ago, I left my spiritual teacher after 14 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a very big moment in my life. The decision was almost made for me, but I'd been feeling it for a while. And then events unfolded whereby it literally fell out of my hands, and I no longer saw the teacher in my teacher. You know, there's a point in any true teacher-student relationship whereby at the beginning the teacher can see things in the student that the student can't see without the teacher.
Right.
And then there's a point in any true student-teacher relationship where the student can then see things in the teacher can't see without the student.
Right.
And if the teacher's unwilling to explore that and stay humble,
yeah,
it has to end the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not, and everyone's being humble, you know, like the student's not going, I know better. It's not like that. But it became really obvious that right. I could no longer go to this person for guidance.
You're the why person, and the whys were not being answered anymore.
Absolutely. Yes. In fact, I could see the root causes as to why the person was behaving the way they were, and they weren't necessarily willing to look at stuff that, you know. Anyway, long story short, that whole process for me personally, this is why it's probably not the best time to, but maybe it's a good time to ask that question, Evette. But for me, I've kind of thrown everything I've learned in that journey like up in the air right now, and I'm, or should I say, I'm sifting for the gold.
And I want to ask you just something completely unrelated to your specific situation. This is now more like a generalized question, because this is something that I've seen myself. And I once had a mentor who, and this is where ego comes into play. I had a mentor, and she was tremendously psychic. I mean, oh, she was so good. And one day I talked to her on the phone again, and I said, do you have a gray skirt on with, you know, a Teletubby cat next to you? And I described the environment to the T, and she goes like, oh my God, you are right. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I've always wanted to be as good as you. And she actually responded, and she said, well, that's nice, but this was probably just a good moment for you, but you will never really be as good as me, but you will get to your level. And I'm telling you, it destroyed me. I was walking in this place of self-doubt that was emotionally like an emotional suicide almost for me. It was terrible.
I'm sorry that
yeah, it shook me. It shook me to my core, and I did not expect it from this person. Normally it happens to the people that you expect it least from, but better that the true colors are revealed and shown to you, you know, and at least you recognize that, because a lot of other people who were maybe in a more vulnerable state would have gone, oh, no, it's okay, you know, like it, oh, okay, you know, yeah, you're up there, I'm here, we'll keep it like that. But I didn't accept that. I absolutely did not accept that, because that moment with her where I saw remotely was so powerful. It convinced me that, well, no, I can be as good as you, if not, I wouldn't say better, but I can match you easily, and I just did. So the thing,
well, any true teacher wants their students to be better than them. That's the point. Any true teacher wants the student to surpass them, because that's how amazing they've done a great job being the teacher. And I had exactly the same situation. Anytime I started to go anywhere near the realms of, like, in his view, surpassing him, he had to chop me down.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to see that pattern, but I realized after a while is, oh my God, he's a narcissist. I've actually accidentally got in a spiritual relationship with someone who needs to be one up all the time and will never let me fulfill my potential, you know. And it sounds like you that might have something similar happen to you, and it's well done for not just believing that limitation.
I almost
Because
did.
that's what it was. It was, you could have taken that limitation and gone, I'll carry that for the rest of my life. And something inside you had the insight to go, whoa, no, that's not cool.
And I want to bring this up because, this is such an important topic also for the summit. And one thing also is because now I'm just thinking people might be wondering, oh my God, how do I know when a dynamic with a teacher is good or bad? So guys, I just want to kind of like throw something out there, and Sandy's also going to share something with what you want to add there. And I think just from my perspective is that when something doesn't feel right, two things can be happening. One is that truly it could be your gut saying that this person is not in alignment with you. And another part can also be that maybe this teacher is going to help you shift something so big and so great that you have such a massive attachment to, that your self-sabotage and your fear of change is now kicking in. So don't always feel that if you have a bad feeling with someone that is necessarily actually bad. It's important to investigate why. But Sandy, in your case, in my case, it was just like bam, it was just, it was very clear what was happening in that moment. So this is just for new people who are looking for mentors, or people who do have a mentor and they kind of like, well, I don't know how to handle this relationship or this dynamic.
Well, it's a very, 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 very important decision.
I know.
And if you're not careful, there's some spiritual paths out there that will say that if you have a problem with the teacher, you're unsurrendered. And that's a very, very toxic kind of path, because they're basically saying that the teacher's untouchable, unreflectable. You're not allowed to give them any feedback. They are always right. And if you have a problem, it's because you're biting on a thought, or you're unsurrendered, or you're judging, And yes, it's the role of the teacher to point the finger back at the student's heart, but it's also the student's role and duty to reflect to the teacher what the student sees, even if it's not accurate or not. And it's the teacher's job to be forever open to the feedback from all of their universe. And when that stops happening, it starts turning into a bit of a cult, or definitely a cult, not a bit of, so you have to be careful. I say that actions speak louder than words. I got to a point where, the path I was involved with was rooted in praise, gratitude, and love. And I started seeing everybody that I was interacting with was more living from praise, gratitude, and love than the teacher. I saw the actions. So the actions speak louder than words. Does that mean that's a very important thing? Look at the evidence. Like when you say investigate, look at what's really going on. Ask the challenging questions, see what sort of answer you get. And definitely, there's a point where if you have that nagging feeling for a long time, seek out help to transcend it, or maybe it's actually the thing, the person or the path, you've outgrown it.
One piece of advice I want to give the viewers, because this is such an important topic before we wrap up, and I would love to hear your opinion as well, Sandy. One thing that I do is when I teach, and it doesn't matter in what format, whether it's with a friend, meaning teach, meaning give advice or give support, whether it's in the format of a class, the way when a student asks me a question, or when I have a client and they ask me a question and they're waiting for a perspective or advice or a way of seeing life, the first thing that I always do is that I say to the person, my opinion, and this is only my opinion, this is how I see it, X, Y, Z. I don't declare it as being the truth. You ask, what do I think? Well, here is my opinion, but I'm not expressing it trying to convince the other person to buy into what I'm saying. You share information with the intention so that people can compare it with the information that they have, and then you connect to what you feel you relate to. That for me is a powerful way to convey information and to communicate. But because at the end of the day, if you are a teacher or a mentor or whatever it is, then you're just conveying information and you're filtering that through your channels, through your perspectives.
I would agree. And at the same time, I would never, ever say that there's a middleman to God. If anyone is trying to say that you need them to connect with God, then they're a salesman. They're not, there's no middleman to God. There's no, so it's a really important thing, you know, like if any organization or person is trying to convince you that you're less than without them, or that you will somehow lose your connection to a lineage or the God or source if you're not like with them, then that's a major alarm. Okay, so that's where, you know, we were talking before we came on air today about the age of the guru and stuff, and we're saying the difference. I'm saying that sort of guru that says that you need me in order to connect with God, that time is gone. I think we purified the human nervous system enough that we can all connect. But we don't need some other person to do that. We already could, but really nowadays it's become really obvious that the age of the guru is gone. However, the age of guidance is very much alive. and I would not try and do it on my own. I still have, for me, I've had a complete continuity of the teacher, even though I ended a teacher-student relationship. The teacher still exists in my life. I've had complete continuity. People, so much, the teacher is constantly teaching me right now, everywhere. The teacher is showing up everywhere. So we need to remain innocent and humble, open to guidance. Guidance is really important, and not to try and do it on our own, because it can be hard to transcend the mind if you have to rely on your mind to tell you how you're getting on, transcending the mind that you're relying on. You know, it gets a bit loopy in there, and it is useful to have feedback and guidance, and not try and do it on your own. So it's definitely a team effort.
Absolutely.
Don't let anyone convince you that they stand between you and source. That is a big warning.
Team effort. It really is, and that's also why I'm doing the summit, because it's a team effort between light workers to each share their message and for people to connect and relate to the people that they relate to. And it's always fun to have more than one mentor. It's great to have different perspectives and different ways of interpreting things, different modalities. There's a modality that's ready for anyone where they are at in their life. And that's why there's so many different modalities. I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I'd agree.
I love it. Yeah. Guys, there you have it. Sandy, thank you so much for being here with me today. It was just absolutely such a pleasure.
That was quite a journey, wasn't it? We started with mind detox up, in Spain, and then we ended up talking spiritual gurus, and we went on a journey on an Orient Express somewhere in the middle. It was a pretty big conversation.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the viewers are going to be loving it here with us. And guys, thank you so much. And Sandy, is there one last thing that you would love to share with anyone who might be just feeling really, really stuck in their spirituality right now? Just a word of encouragement or a message.
Oh, if you're feeling stuck, then bring it on. You know, bring it on. Like, ultimately, I believe we're here to learn how to welcome the full spectrum of life. You know, we're on this planet or plane, however you, depending on how you look at it, for a very short period of time. And, you know, there's lots of different ideas about the purpose of life and everything. But ultimately, you know, I boiled it down to, you know, we get very little time here, and I don't want to spend my life resisting what's showing up. And the big question I asked in my Calm Cure book was, you know, am I willing to experience all of life or just some of it? And if I was honest, I wasn't willing to experience the majority of my life. I was having a fight with most of the stuff that's happening in my day. And if you're feeling stuck, then lean into that. Let yourself feel stuck, and see what's on the other side of that stuckness. It might surprise you.
I love that. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Sandy. And guys, that's a wrap for today. So I would love for you to even at some point actually watch this interview again. There were some really amazing points that, Sandy, that you were tapping on that I can imagine for anyone that might be new in this. Selective hearing can sometimes kick in, especially when you drop these truth bombs. So sometimes it's actually worth to watch an interview twice. So I would highly recommend that you do that, because today was very powerful messages. And Sandy, thank you for your love, your time, your energy. Thank you for the light work and everything that you do. The world needs light workers more than ever now. So thank you so much for your contributions and loving your people and always giving that support and sharing your knowledge and sharing your research like you did today. Thank you so much for that.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandy. So guys, until next time, be the light that you are. Bye, everyone.